This episode is brought to you by Resistance Candles, high-quality wax candles that keep the flame of resistance alive. How do you deal with a mother-in-law who turns out to be somewhat of a reviling wife? Should you talk to her? Should you confront her? Should you talk to your husband, your pastor? What should you do? Or how about motherhood fatigue, when you're stuck in the feeling of burnout, stressed and anxious, and you've gone to the Lord and it just still feels like God has laid forth his providence in your life so that in this season, energy and feeling excited about your work is a real difficulty. Or maybe even you have a question about canning. Well, if any of those questions are questions that you've ever thought of, you're in luck, because in this episode of Bright Hearth, we are opening up the mailbag and we're taking up some great thoughtful questions from listeners around the globe who have sent in their questions. And so we're going to be taking those up in this episode, but also we want to let you know, as always, that our mailbag is open. There is in the podcast description a send us a text button that you can use to send us your questions from listening to the show or really whatever's going on in your productive Christian household. And every about 4 episodes or so, we take a break and do an episode or two, just opening up that mailbag and answering those questions. As a reminder, we cannot respond to those texts. It's just kind of an automated system that puts them in a mailbox for us, but we do look through them and we do compile them for episodes like this. And so we hope these questions are helpful, not just to the people who asked them, but also to all of you listening, because it turns out that really all of us are tempted with the same temptations, made of the same stuff. And so a lot of the time, these questions are not really just the question of one person, but a question that many of us have faced in our life. So we hope that they're helpful, and now on with the show.
Welcome back to Bright Hearth, everybody. Brian is here with his wife. I won't give you the cold shoulder for that.
I was kidding. I've been messing around. I've been telling Lexi that I'm going to start talking to her fairly exclusively in the persona of a British person, because
do other people know what you're referring to and I just didn't know that?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
Maybe not. I'm going to start ordering food like a British person would. Love, I just like a raw tuna if you could just bring it on a plank from a ship. That's right. And maybe just the hooves from a goat ground up. Why do British people eat like this? Did they not know that there are recipes that they can follow from other places? I don't understand it. Do you understand it?
No.
It's the first question for this Q&A.
I don't understand.
What's going on with British people? And has been for some time.
Do we have some British listeners? Do we have any?
Sound off if you're listening from over the pond, from the Queen's realm. Well, the King's now. Rest her soul. Anyway, it's good to be back here Bright Hearthing with all of you. And we've got some great questions today lined up from around the world, actually. We've got some from Australia. I can't do an Australian accent.
That's cool.
Which you're probably all thankful for now. A lot, and then from sea to sea, from Florida to California, we've got listener questions today. We would love to hear your questions, like we said in the cold open. So send them in, as always, and we try to go through and compile them and keep a tally of where those are at. And
I just thought of a question.
What's up?
Do you know where my phone is? Because I remembered I have to record in the kitchen.
No,
I see it. It's here.
Oh, she found it.
Continue.
This is just a little window into our normal life here, looking for Lexi's phone.
Okay, go ahead.
It is good to be back. Speaking of in the kitchen, if you like what we do here at Bright Hearth, you can jump in and support us on Patreon. And Lexi does a little weekly, it's called In the Kitchen. It's usually just a short focused on one subject, one question, that kind of thing.
Sometimes that makes sense.
No, they always
when
do.
I don't have a
They're
cold.
Cinema. They're, first of all, they're absolute cinema. What are you going to talk about this week on In the Kitchen?
I don't know, but I'm sure something will come to mind as we're
We'll let you know
as we're recording that I can talk about longer. So,
and those come out every Tuesday on Patreon, and every Monday, an ad-free early episode of Bright Hearth comes out. So they're at least a week ahead listening, and it's kind of a downgrade to be ad-free, to be honest, because our ads are absolute cinema. But the only other housekeeping thing I'd say is make sure you grab tickets for our conference in June. the War for Normal, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then if you can, stick around for Sunday. And we're doing church in the conference venue so everybody can fit. It's selling out pretty quick as we thought it would with the lower family pass ticket. So we are way ahead of our normal capacity for this time of year. And I'm looking for extra seats, but it's
For
a good
real?
time. Yes, it's a good time. We're like way further ahead. It's early March as we record. I think this comes out March 30th. But yeah, definitely check that out. Also, there's tons of fun stuff. Golf tournament. We're going to be doing, I'm putting on a concert. Speaking of, there will be some music announcements in the next week or two. So
Wow.
keep your ears open for that, Lexi.
Okay.
Keep your, like, as if you haven't been hearing me putter around the house. QCing mixes and things like that. Okay. It's time to lock in and answer some listener questions. The first note that I have here from a listener in Riverside, California, it's actually not a question, it's a note. They just said, did you know Lexi's book is styled in the Victoria magazine? I was surprised and excited to see it there. I did. Did you know that?
My mom told me that because Evan told my mom.
It got to Lexi through the classical chain of communication.
It was cute.
So yeah.
My mom was really excited about that.
Victoria Magazine for featuring Lexi's book, and that's pretty cool. Now, a listener from Australia did ask us a real question. They said, what do you do if you are deep in the season of motherhood and homemaking, but you are stuck in what feels like burnout, adrenal fatigue, and always feeling stressed and anxious? Obviously, going before the Lord with your requests for energy and patience to do your jobs well, but just still feeling stuck. And I thought that was a great question because many times we find ourselves in these situations where we do know what we're supposed to do and we're asking the Lord for the energy to do it well and with a cheerful heart, just like we would teach our children. But it is simply hard, and you might be in a season where it's physically difficult or there are other burdens or things in your way that are just, we obviously don't want to use them as excuses, but they could be. They're these things where we're like, man, it'd be a lot easier to be cheerful if I didn't feel like my body was falling apart left and right. I know you've had seasons like this, even through pregnancies with the veins that you've dealt with and some of the different health issues that have certainly made it difficult. So how did you keep your chin up? What would you say?
I think the first thing is like really being diligent about buckling down on gratitude.
Yeah, that's good.
Because that really changes that outlook of shifting from complaining to thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I think that alone really can change everything. In addition to that, I think there's just some seasons where it's okay to say like, hang on, I need to pull back for maybe even just 6 weeks to get back on top of having enough meal prep done, making sure dinners are like healthy food is on the table regularly. I'm exercising enough. I'm able to get enough sleep to get my Bible reading in because that helps set the tone for the rest of the day. I actually really liked that they acknowledged this on Brutal American a couple of episodes ago of like, how do you know when you're doing too much? Well, are you able to get scripture reading, family worship, and working out done?
Yeah.
If not, then you're doing too much. So I think it's okay. The goal isn't, this is what happens is I think then people like shift, like downshift, but then they stay there as if like that is the goal, is just to have that sort of peace. The goal is to get there so that you can add the other stuff back though.
Yeah, so look through your calendar, look through your schedule, and see if there's anything that you can temporarily even just step back from and say, this is a time when I really need to get back ahead and I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I think it's really important as well. This is why Lexi brought up gratitude, is to understand that our duties in all seasons, including seasons like this, our duty is contentment and joy. So that's actually a duty. God commands us to rejoice at all times. Pretty directly. Paul's pretty direct. And we're commanded to be content. And that doesn't mean biblical contentment doesn't mean that you're never seeking to improve some circumstance or heal from some physical issue or figure out a challenge that's making life difficult. Contentment is starting with the recognition before God that God is sovereign over your life and that he has custom made all of your trials. He's custom made all of your difficulties. He's custom made every providence of your life for your good as his saint. So that means that when you're in the midst of like, man, it would be so much easier if my body were just felt like it was working 100%, but I feel like this adrenal fatigue and burnout, and I'm just physically tired, and I'm trying to get sleep, and I'm trying to work out, and I'm trying to eat right, but I just still feel off. And maybe there's a health issue underlying there, or maybe it's just you're tired and working hard and it's difficult. Okay. God in his infinite wisdom decreed in his providence that would be a circumstance of your life right now. Mm-hmm. And he did that because he loves you. And because that is supposed to produce some good in you. That trial is supposed to produce some kind of endurance and character and virtue in you that otherwise wouldn't be. And the existence of the thing that it's going to produce will be more glorious than easy life for this season. And God knows more than you, and he did that. Resistance Candles is a family-owned candle company that wants to inspire the spirit of 1776. They make candles with scents that are full of depth and warmth, and they're made with clean ingredients, which means no soy and no GMOs. Resistance Candles offer experiences that harken back to the time of the American Revolution, like their scent titled Liberty or Death, which has notes of cinnamon and spices, deep amber, and weathered wood. Go to resistancecandles.com, and if you buy one or more candle, you get a free candle on us. Just use code HEARTH in all caps. Did you know that a woman's health during pregnancy can directly impact the health of her grandchildren? Generational health starts long before birth. That's why Rebecca at Live Oak Integrative Health takes a functional medicine approach, combining nurse-driven coaching, personalized testing, and practical, data-based care to help women restore balance in hormones, gut health, fertility, and weight. Plus, she can do all of that remotely via telemedicine. Visit liveoakintegrativehealth.com/hearth to book your discovery call today. Listeners of the show will receive a special rate. Hey there, friends. Let me tell you about Gray Toad Tallow. They're a family-owned small business passionate about creating skincare products that nourish your skin with pure, wholesome ingredients. For centuries, tallow has been valued for its moisturizing and healing properties, and Gray Toad Tallow is dedicated to sharing these benefits with your family. They strive to keep their products affordable and accessible, aiming to be a blessing to you and your family. Visit graytoadtallow.com to learn more and try a balm sample pack. And don't forget to use code BRIGHT15, that's all caps, BRIGHT15, for 15% off your order. Thanks for supporting this great small business. So when you think about it that way, you can immediately even be thankful for your trials. And I don't mean in like a trite way, because they're not easy. You can even thank you, Lord. You know my frame. You know what I need. Apparently I needed this. Can you, though, also help me to get what I'm supposed to out of it, to move through it, to obey you, to be content. Thank you for all these other blessings. And I think that's the real answer. There's no easy, like, oh, if you just did this one thing, then you would not feel like that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. And I would also really recommend one of the books that we're going through as the ladies book group. It's called Skole Every Day. And I've heard Misty say this for years, and there's a chapter in there on it too, of like, women can go from hand to mouth, like just existing on getting the laundry done, getting the dinner cooked, getting the floors mopped, while forgetting they're made in the image of God, which means they need spiritual input. So Missy has said before, like, women come to me saying they're burnt out, but they don't want to hear that what they need isn't less, but more. Yeah. They need more spiritual input, or maybe spiritual input at all. Or what they need is skole. They need like a restful day of festivity and Sabbath where they're not working. They are taking a physical break from that so that they can focus on spiritual things. Not even for the sake of producing better the next week, but for the sake of we are created in the image of God, and there is a spiritual component to that, and that's how we exist. But most people don't like that because it's adding to them.
Yeah, it's more work, it can feel like.
But it really isn't more in the long run. And it's been cool to see a lot of the ladies like really love that idea of, no, this is better. It helps you do everything else better when you acknowledge that.
It's a part of what Paul's talking about when he says in Colossians to lift your eyes from the things of earth.
Yes.
Set your mind, set your eyes where your life is hidden with Christ and God, and consider heavenly things. Even there's a way you can consider earthly created things in a heavenly way as made by God, and looking for the beauty and the truth and the goodness in it, and meditating upon important thoughts. People sometimes get this misunderstanding, I think, that because we are classically and traditionally patriarchal in the William Gouge lane and vein, that we don't believe that women should be thinking really important thoughts or learning things, but that they should pretty much just be wiping noses and feeding people. Well, they do wipe a lot of noses and feed people, but women certainly are encouraged over. And if you looked at all the different hangouts there where they get together and think about different important books together, or the conversations they have, Lexy tells women all the time, if you're gossiping, it's because you don't have, you're not filling your mind with important thoughts to think. And so you're descending down to the bottom of the barrel and just talking about other people all the time. Have important thoughts to think about. Talk about architecture, talk about art, talk about philosophy, talk about truth, like
medicine, things, just not people.
This actually brings us to another question. I didn't write it down, but I kept it in my back pocket just as one if we needed, but I think it fits here. This listener wanted to remain anonymous, so I won't say where they're from, even, just because a lot of people in their world probably listen to it from what they're saying. Listen to Bright Hearth. They were basically asking, is it appropriate or is it not appropriate for women to get together and like debate about politics and philosophy and doctrine and some of these things? And they gave examples like, maybe there's a group of women that they get together, but a lot of times it devolves. And there was a tone of where it wasn't completely healthy. They were wondering what was off about it. Mm-hmm. And they were debating like paedobaptism or something like that, and constantly saying like, hey, read this, listen to this 3-hour thing and read these 5 books because you're wrong. And, or politics, or, kind of all of the hot button things. And they said, first of all, is that appropriately feminine? Like, is that a good thing for women to do? And then where is the line there? And I do think, I'll speak to it a little bit and then I want to hear your thoughts too. I think that all of those topics can be totally fine for women to talk about, because women are people, and people are interested in the world God made. We say all the time, interested people are interesting people. And we should want to be interesting people, because it's a glory to God as our maker when his creatures are interesting, and when they have range, and when they're looking at the world he made with curiosity, like, oh, that's God made all this stuff. This is really cool. Doctrine is obviously massively important. Our women are thinking theological thoughts. They're reading theological stuff. They're talking with their husbands. Some of the boundaries that Paul gives are things like that she should be silent in the church. And if she has a question, she should ask her husband. So part of that is church order. Is this disrupting church order? Are the women being really loud and kind of like bossy, argumentative women in the public realm of the church, where the women of the church, if women came and fellowshipped, that would be the dominant note of like pugilistic, loud, debatey kind of? I think that would be off. I think they should probably be going and asking those, because it's not an accident that Paul specifically says when you have questions to go to your husband, because those are the areas where there's going to be a lot of debate. And Paul does that for order in 2 realms: for order in the church, so that the women are not dominating by lead, because questions lead. They don't just, questions are a way of leading. Mm-hmm. They are also a way of being insubordinate. They can be. You could, think of a Q&A at church, Sunday school class or something. A man, I'm not just talking about women. A man could subversively lead the conversation and aim to undermine the authority of the teacher by the way he asks questions. Well, have you considered this? In Anselm's third treatise, he says, and really they're just trying to make the Sunday school teacher look stupid or something. Or they're trying to lead them to say you're wrong. Okay, whatever. Maybe they are wrong. Maybe they're not. Paul doesn't want the women leading and teaching and being the voice in the church in that way. He wants the doctrinal instruction in the church. He wants the leadership and worship in the church to be male. That's the order that God made for it. And then even in the home and community, he wants those areas of confusion or controversy to be settled first in the home under the leadership of the husband, so that the husband doesn't find out that his wife has been engaged in 6 months of debates, and then she comes home and announces that she's converting to Anglicanism. Or that they all need to convert to Anglicanism from their Presbyterian church. And we've been talking, whoa, where's this coming from? Well, we've been talking with, so-and-so, and we agree about this ecclesiology and this issue of baptism. And we've been really debating, we've read a bunch, and that would be out of order. Not because it's wrong to consider the doctrinal questions surrounding something like Presbyterianism versus Anglicanism in their ecclesiology and soteriology and et cetera. It's just out of order. Her husband needs to be taking the lead in that because this is a question of the order of their home, leadership of the whole people. It's in his ultimate purview. So I think that there is a way in which those conversations can happen that can undermine the church and the order of the home, and Paul is anticipating that. But I think there's also a way in which it can be appropriate for women to discuss some of these things. One last thing I'll say, before Lexy, talks about she's a woman, and they talk about it, stuff like this in a way that I think is appropriate and isn't undermining anything that shouldn't be undermined. But dispositionally, women have a hard time holding a certain kind of tension that men don't have a hard time holding. For example, men can debate, like all out, I think you're stupid and wrong. And 5 seconds after the debate, be perfectly good friends, get along, and not gossip and be catty and whatever. Women just have a very hard time doing this. When women fight, they fight in different ways than men. When women debate, they debate in different ways than men. And some of those ways, and I think it's because God designed the man to lead in these areas of, I would call them like rhetorical pugilism. And so he's fitted for them in his constitution, and they don't derail him on the rest of his other stuff. But for women, when they are engaged in a fight with another woman, or when they're like, just a debate of ideas with a woman, I've seen it a million times. They develop a genuine antipathy for the other woman, and then they have an instinct to want to destroy her socially, and to win the debate through social ostracism and tactics that are unkind and contrary to fellowship. So I do think there's an element there where women can absolutely discuss these things, particularly if they've already brought their questions to their husband at home. He's aware of what's happening. We're going to talk about this book or this subject, and we've been thinking about it in this women's women get together and go, and literally this doesn't even have to be a formal thing. It can happen. Women are going to the park and their kids hang out and they can talk about interesting stuff. It can happen, but I genuinely don't think that framing it around or making it the goal of we're going to debate this and someone's going to win is probably the most helpful way, given the constitution of the ladies. What do you think? How have you ladies handled some of these questions?
I typically won't share, even in a one-on-one setting that could border into teaching someone on something doctrinally that we have a conviction on, unless they come to me with a question. And it's hey, my husband and I have been studying paedobaptism. How did you go about understanding this one particular part that we just can't get past? And then I'll be oh, cool. Clearly she has permission from her husband to be looking into this.
Right.
I do not, or like if someone's asking me a question that isn't necessarily doctrinally related, but in my head, it's like the fleshing out of a particular doctrine, I will explain why we did X, Y, Z, but then say like, but that's our covenant theology coming into play here.
Yeah.
You might feel differently about it, but that's how we flesh that out.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine getting into something even bordering on a debate with my close friends over stuff like this. And part of it is just like, I don't want to be doctrine setting in their home. I don't want to play Pope. I mean, to the point where some of my friends, I think, get annoyed where I will like be very apologetic about don't bring up certain subjects unless it's very clear that I'm not trying to play Pope with them. And everyone's usually like, Lexi, we know, just be quiet. But because that's just awkward and I don't want that dynamic in a friendship at all. But that doesn't mean like we can all get along and joke about those who do and don't head cover and those who do and don't baptize their babies. And it's not like we get along in charity and fellowship because of Reformed Catholicity, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there's a really important part that you brought up, and that is that Lexi doesn't want to undermine the authority of the husband. So Lexi is never, ever, ever going to hard press some woman whose husband is a particular Baptist about why they should be baptizing their babies. It is simply not her place. It's his place to lead his home. They can talk. He can talk to the pastors. He can he can in his home have the discussion.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I can give one example. This was several years ago, somebody that was clearly like being very underhanded and passive aggressive. And I knew probably theologically did not agree with us as a church in a lot of things, but was a member of the church. And looking back now, I should not have gone to her one-on-one. Like that's what you and I had decided for us to do that. And I did that. But she just could not talk non-emotionally about it. Because to her, it was a theological issue. To me, it was a fellowship issue of like, I don't care if you guys don't agree with this, but it's very obvious to a lot of people that socially something's going on, that you can't stand me anymore. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
And that's where husbands need to be quick to step in and have an instinct of, and pastors too, of stepping in and saying, there's a debate raging from this woman to these other three women, and it's about this, but it's clear, like this is what I mean about the way women fight. I could give example after example of a woman who has a doctrinal issue, like that's the surface issue. We have a doctrinal issue here about such and such. And even the elders could meet with the woman and her husband and talk through it. And let's say that it's even an issue like head covering, where in our church, are you going to hear Pastor Sauvé preach about head coverings positively when it comes up in 1 Corinthians 11? Yes. Are we going to promote them? Yes. But is it required for membership? No. You could hold a principled disagreement on this position and be a member. That's one of those areas where there is a possibility of range and different conviction, and listen to your husband and obey your conscience and that sort of thing. But where you could completely clear up that answer. So there should be no more heat at all. Nobody should be worried or anxious, but the woman is still obviously full of anxiety, fear, anger, bitterness. And she's saying things like, well,
can I say,
and then it's just emotional, like the women are being suppressed here. Or if women do wear head coverings, then it's going to go in this direction, and they're going to be, you could give more examples. Yeah,
that's what it was I just wanted to clear it up socially so she could be friends. And instead her reaction was, you and Brian are XYZ, these very specific sins that would disqualify my husband from ministry. And I said, okay, can you give me some examples? And also, are you willing to tell the elders that? And of course not. Of course she's not.
Right.
But I realized really quickly, even though I could maintain my cool in the conversation, most people just can't. And part of that, I'm not saying it's like, some of it is my disposition, but some of it is just years and years of this that now I can not, like it's just a normal conversation for me to have at this point, unfortunately. But it was one of those things where she was not even thinking clearly anymore.
Yeah, there's emotion, there's heat involved. This can happen with men or women, but what you're describing, and I think a lot of pastors will understand, happens about 10-1 with women.
Yeah.
And pastors get a sense, and their families do. A pastor's wife gets a sense when you're like this person, this family, they're probably going to leave the church at some point in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And because at some point along the way, we've lost their trust. Mm-hmm. And there are 2 or 3 doctrinal issues that are going to be the spearhead that they are going to use to leave the church. Mm-hmm. But those doctrinal issues are not the issue. Mm-hmm. There's actually, whether it's a loss, and this can happen legitimately, where maybe we did something, or illegitimately, where you dropped the ball on something and have to apologize. Yeah, hey, I really forgot to do that thing. I should have done that. And maybe there was something like that, or maybe it was just they had a bad experience with someone who held that doctrine, or they're importing all of their experiences with other people who maybe are associated with some doctrine or other with you. And so they're like, well, we get this all the time. Oh, you guys are like that Gothard fellow. What's his first name? Do you know his first name?
No.
I think people know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, probably. I don't remember his first name.
I think he was big in like homeschooling world. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I know very little about Gothard because I've never once consumed, listened to, experienced any Gothard stuff at all. None of my views on sexed piety, on order in the church, these are views that are derived from classical Protestant doctrine. From, again, we bring up we say all the time, Googe, not Gothard. Because I don't know everything Gothard believed. So someone might say, oh, well, you say you're patriarchal. That was a word this guy used. Therefore, you must be like this guy. And this guy did this. And they were cultic and I actually don't even know. So what? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. Mm-hmm. And then what you find is that people have already decided before they ever talk to you who you are and where you fit. They've already put you in some kind of like collage or spot in the universe of Christendom. And then they're filling you up with all of their notions.
It's never a middle road either. It's always a ditch they're shoving you into.
Almost always. So, and
it's never like, maybe this fellow brother or sister in Christ is a reasonable person.
So this is why are we talking about this in conjunction with a question about women debating doctrine and stuff? Because the seedbed for many, many thousands of church splits, family splits, lack of fellowship, destruction of things that shouldn't have been destroyed. The seedbed of it were women, quote unquote, debating issues when that's not what they were doing. They were trying to socially destroy one another and rip apart. They were trying to dominate one another via the vehicle of a political theological discussion.
Yeah.
But they were doing it in a completely, from the beginning, disordered way. They were supposed to have asked their husband at home and their pastor at church.
Yeah.
And the pastors, they were supposed to ask their husband at home, and then their husband even asked the pastor at church, and they get on the same. That's the order. Mm-hmm. And Paul appoints that for a reason.
Yeah. And I can even think of times of like some of my closest friends that, multiple elders' wives that we have just said out loud, like amongst ourselves, we're just not going to talk about this anymore. Move on. Not because we're debating and not even because we disagree on it, but it's like, that's a topic for the men. What'd you cook last night?
And it's really good for mature women to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Even to notice, this is about to go in, we're starting to get a little annoyed with one another.
It should be a normal dynamic. Not that we ever, that's not a regular thing that we're doing. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that, but it should be an option, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yes. Among mature women.
Yeah, and then there are things we do in the church culture. Maybe pastors can try some of these things to work as. So you want to take all of the most controversial questions and things in a church that can really bring division, and those change every year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Right now, it's like there's a huge roiling debate around things like ethnicity and race and immigration and politics and Christian nationalism. There's all these debates raging around this kind of stuff. And you can either try to make every conversation taboo and then say oh, don't talk about that. Don't listen to that. Don't think those thoughts. Those are bad, nasty, un-Christian thoughts. So just don't have them. And you can kind of try to gatekeep the whole conversation out of your church. The thing is, A, that doesn't actually wrestle with the issues, and they're important issues. And B, it produces a culture of suspicion and Soviet style labeling where, that person, for thinking that thought or having that debate, they're an anti-Semite or they're this or they're that or they're a racist or the favorite tool of the left. Racism is a hammer and everything is a nail, to the left. So one of the things we do in the church is starting with the men and then working out in some different concentric rings. We try to have relief valves, or like places where these conversations can happen, where you can bring up any question, have any discussion. We've had men's book group discussions where we read a book, a controversial book, and then just freely discuss it when the elders are there, or at least one of the elders are there.
I would never do that. Ladies groups would never read a controversial book and then discuss it together.
Men's group. So the men will do that, and we'll discuss and figure out where, and then you figure out, like, a lot of time you figure out there's a lot of middle ground where everybody agrees in this 80%. Here's the debated 20%, and here's maybe even the most controversial 3%. But we're all there calling balls and strikes and saying the ground rule is that we're all going to be friends and in fellowship.
Yes.
Even if we disagree about the 3%, 5%, 20%. We're going to be in fellowship and recognize that from the beginning, these are issues that we don't all have to agree about on every single thing. And also, it's okay for you to think, consider, and try to come to some truth about them. They're important issues, but we're not going to let them destroy or divide our fellowship. We're not going to sin. Here are the clear lines where Scripture would say that we would be sinning if we did X. And then, in the discussion about, you might give a really caricatured example that's just super obvious. Okay, we will know as a church that we've really gone off the rails, or like a person could know they've really gone off the rails if they meet somebody who's slightly more tan than them and they just immediately start calling them racial slurs. Like, for example, that would probably mean that you're sinning, or it would, you've gone off the rails somewhere. Okay. Or if you have hatred in your heart towards somebody, you know nothing about them, and you look at them and you like, I am full of hatred in my heart for you just because of some immutable characteristic of your birth, right? So that would obviously be sinful, and then make some distinctions. That wouldn't be the same thing, though, as an immigration policy, a king making an immigration policy, or a Senate. No, that wouldn't. And then you can have reasonable, rational debates where you're separating simple disagreements about political theory, etc., from sins and crimes. And that's a really good and healthy debate to have. Now, we do that partly with the men first, so that we can have some of these boundaries that are really clear. Everyone knows, like, hey, I'm not going to jump over that fence. I'm going to be on the watch for that sin, because it's one that could creep into this conversation. But also, there's no taboo. There's no need to whisper and keep it on the back burner and be like, oh, this so-and-so's coming. Don't talk about that. No, like, we can all talk about this. That really gives the structure of the community for the women to be free from also needing to subversively try to lead the charge and be like, well, did you know that so-and-so is an anti-Semite? Well, okay. Because that's what happens.
That's why I said what I did about, I personally would never lead a book like that, because I know certain women would do that.
Well, we wouldn't do that. The women's group wouldn't have that conversation. We also have a thing called the town hall. We just started doing this, where like once a month or so, we'll get together as a church. We'll introduce some topic. I might teach a little bit on it or give kind of an introduction to it. And then it's just dialogical. Does anybody have a question? And then we have more of a dialogical teaching, so that, and as a pastor, I'm doing that because I want to know, maybe I am thinking such and such about a question that's controversial, but they want to bring up some question about it I never would have thought of. And I've had this happen a million times in one-on-one conversations. It's why we started doing it, where I would talk to a guy who maybe had a problem or thought he had a problem with something I believed. And then we would talk about it for 2 hours. And because he was able right in the moment to ask all the questions he had, and I could immediately answer them, he would realize, oh, actually, we totally agree on this subject. Like, we don't even disagree. We completely agree. And I just didn't understand what you thought. And I, as the pastor, didn't even know they were thinking these things. So building in some community safeguards around whisper campaigning, like some of these feminine modes of fighting, men, a truly godly masculine way of fighting for men, in terms of rhetoric, is to get up and debate. Right? And when you don't do that, you end up with feminine modes, and not godly femininity, but like warped, sinful feminine modes of long-housed controversy, and that is whisper campaigning, gossip, canceling people behind their back, having 15 conversations with 10 people who have nothing to do with that person about how we're going to destroy them and how, like, this is what women do when they're sinning. They create little coalitions like this, and then they whisper campaign and do all that. And that's deeply effeminate. So you head it off in the church by bringing all the conversations that need to be into the light, clear boundaries, seatbelts, have the conversations. And then it's so much easier to tell a woman than ask your husband at home. Why? Because we know that we've been talking about that. Her husband's going to be, it's on his radar.
Yeah, and purely from a practical perspective, I mean, my friends and I have said this before. Even if you ask the pastor the question and he explains the answer, you still have to go ask your husband, what do you think? Is that the answer for our household? So purely speaking, practically, just go ask him in the first place.
And if a woman asks the pastor a question, that's not like totally off limits. After church, a woman might ask a question, or we will always tell her, yeah, you should ask your husband about it. I think, discuss it with him, ask him a question. Here's what the church believes. You're asking a question about, this is what we promote. So, but talk to your husband, or maybe you grab it. So it's just normal. Okay. That was a long time on that one. This is why we do 2 Q&A episodes in a row, because we always have a lot. And sometimes we get...
'Cause you're such a chatterbox.
I know, babe. I am. Everybody says it. Wives, you know your husband would fight for your family without hesitation, but every knight needs armor, and in today's world, that means ballistic protection made for the modern defender. Armored Republic makes real armor for real men, law-abiding citizens, fathers, husbands, protectors. Visit armoredrepublic.com. That's armoredrepublic.com, or text JOIN, all caps JOIN, to 88027 and help your husband stand strong. A good morning sets the tone for the rest of the day. You read your Bible, review your to-do list, and drink a great cup of coffee. So why would you want bad-tasting, mass-produced coffee? Lux Coffee is a Christian-owned coffee roaster that offers intentionally sourced, single-origin coffee beans. They believe that convenience is the death of quality. That's why they spend their time roasting small batches of beans to make sure that every cup of coffee tastes delicious. Start your day with coffee that is crafted for the new Christendom. You can go to luxcoffee.co and use code NCP15, that's all caps, NCP15, for 15% off your handcrafted coffee. And of course, that link is in the description below. Why is it that most soaps and cleaning products, ironically, don't contain clean ingredients? Indigo Sundry's soap company is helping families stay clean and healthy by starting with the most important step in cleanliness: soap. Their cold-pressed soap bars, including clay bars and tallow bars, are made from all natural ingredients that don't have any harmful chemicals. And they smell great. Visit indigosundrysoap.com and order today. And hey, subscribe for regular shipments and get 10% off every time. When you have a busy house, the immediate demands of activities, events, and never-ending to-do lists can overshadow critical long-term decisions. Life insurance, financial planning, education savings, and retirement are continually backburnered. Joe Garrissey and his team from Backwards Planning Financial will help you maximize financial tools, management, and strategies so you can focus on your home and have confidence for your financial future. Visit backwardspanningfinancial.com. That is backwardspanningfinancial.com, or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to develop a plan for the future. Okay, here's a quick one. A listener from New Mexico asks, they said, "Hi, Brian and Lexy. I'd love to get started with canning and was wondering if there are any resources y'all recommend, supplies, books, and just practical info. Thanks in advance." So I'm not going to be chatting on this one. Your thoughts?
You could find somebody in your community, but it sounds like maybe this person doesn't have that. Some states you can, this is what I did. So your little booklet that comes with your canner is a wealth of information. Sometimes they come with recipes and stuff too. You really can go through that step by step. Even still today, when I get mine out to pressure can, I go through the first few steps to make sure nothing is lodged anywhere it shouldn't be. So we're not going to blow up the canner in the kitchen. Do not throw that away. Mine even says in Sharpie, do not toss. In addition to that,
What kind of canner are you talking about?
I'm talking about a pressure canner.
Sits on the stovetop.
Correct. This is something where people get really confused. So there's hot water bath canning and there's pressure canning. Pressure canning has to have a sealed top on it so enough pressure can build up. If you take the top off, you can hot water bath can in it.
Yeah.
You can also hot water bath can in an Instant Pot insert.
In any vessel.
Yes,
big
you
enough.
don't have to have, I thought to begin with, you had to have a hot water bath canning pot. You don't. You just have to have some sort of a trivet in it. And you can buy so many different kinds that holds the jars up off of the bottom so they're not going to break and shatter. What?
Are you frog? You talking about rivets?
Trivet.
What is a trivet?
Oh.
This person is asking a question about how to get started and you're using insider lingo without defining it.
It's true. I'm sorry. We need to go back to the grammar stage.
What is a trivet?
A trivet is usually something metal or rubber that is just lifting the jars off of the bottom so
Gotcha.
that they're not like rattling while the water is boiling around them and shattering in there. So some people even use mason jar lids that they're attaching together somehow, or you can buy, I started out with like a big rubber one that opened up into a star and could easily fold back up, or you can use an Instant Pot trivet. You know, like that metal rack I put in there?
Oh yeah, it lifts it up.
Yes.
It also lets it be surrounded by the water, which
Correct. Yeah.
it makes the temperature uniform because the bottom of the pot directly conducts the heat.
Pressure canners come with a trivet in it though. So that's an easier setup there.
Yeah.
Some states, you can call the extension office at the local university and there is somebody there who's like an old, nice home ec teacher who, if you are approximately 32 weeks pregnant and trying to figure out how to pressure can broth for the first time on a Saturday morning, will stay on the phone with you for about 3 hours to walk you through the process.
This is insane. This is literally what Lexi did. I was like, how did you find this woman? She's at the local university. I called her and she just is telling you how to do this like for hours.
The extension offices are so cool. You can even call and ask like, this is the zone I live in this city. What would you plant next month at this time?
Insane.
Sadly, these women don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that lady, I did try to call her back a few years later and she no longer worked there anymore and they haven't found anyone to replace her. I wonder why. So that's how I started. Call your extension office. If not, I personally really like the Homestead family on YouTube.
Okay.
They're Christians. They have a lot of children. She is a sweet older Titus 2 woman and she does videos really well, walking you through canning. So that's how I learned to pressure can beef specifically.
Very cool. Maybe Tate could put a link to that in the description.
Yes. Her and her husband also do a podcast that's like all about homesteading. I just really, really, really like them.
Awesome.
But yeah, there's some recipe books. I think the ones I reached for the most would be like the blue ball canning book for jams. There's a low sugar canning one. I think the first one is called Food in Jars. And then the one I use in terms of recipes for canned food is the Homestead Canning Cookbook. I like Rebel canning, so I learned a ton of other recipes just by YouTubing Rebel canning.
You're such a rebel.
You can just look stuff up on YouTube. And then the reason I like that is because you're watching them do it. It's not just reading a recipe and throwing it in a pot. It is watching them do the whole process.
Yeah.
So you can then do it yourself.
Replicate it.
You can also just look up like, I don't know, maybe you want a Rebel canned milk. YouTube Rebel canning milk recipe. Then go for it.
How much is a pressure canner?
Oh man, they're so expensive.
Are they really?
They're so expensive.
They look
now.
like they shouldn't be.
I think so. I bought mine in 2020 and I think it was like $89, which felt like a stretch back then. I don't even have a nice one. Like the All-American ones, which for a family our size would be ideal because you can stack cans on top of one another.
Oh, okay.
So you can can a whole lot more at once. It's almost not worth it for me to can anymore right now because of how much we need. But Rebel canning is probably, I want to say 400, if not more than that.
Really?
The canner that I have now, I think last I checked, it was closer to 200. And I have like a really basic Presto canner. How much?
You're talking about these things right here, All-American pressure canner?
That's an All-American. Yeah. How much is that?
Let's look at it.
They're super cool.
Okay, so they're like $350 for a 10 quart up to, oh my word, they have 41 quart that's $650. And then they have some colored ones that are like up to, well, those are like $500. And they're all 21 quart, the colored
When you
ones.
think about having food on hand for 6 seasons, though, in a large family, that quickly adds up.
Totally.
But so like my canner that I have right now, I think max, if I want to be extra careful and not break any jars, I can do 5 quarts.
Yeah.
Which to us, that's like a meal and a half. So
Yeah,
it's
right.
not.
The reward is not as big.
Yeah.
The return.
When I first started canning it, it made a lot more sense, but that's why it's kind of tricky for me right now. I still do it, but it is, if you can start from the get-go with a nice canner, I would definitely say get an All-American.
Yeah. Okay. We have, let's move to another question. This may be the last one for time. We'll see. This is a listener from the Midwest. They said, hello, my husband and I have been listening to Bright Hearth for some time now, and it has been incredibly convicting and helpful for us as we navigate what it looks like for our family of 7, almost 8, to be a productive Christian household. Thanks for the hard work you put in on the content. Thank you for listening. Said, I recently purchased White Knights and Reviling Wives and have begun reading it. That's a book we just published at New Christian Press by David Edgington. It's a really good book. They said it's so good, everyone should read it. My question is in regards to my parents. My mother almost certainly has reviling wife tendencies, and I'm unsure if it's something that would be appropriate for myself or my husband to address. How does one go about respectfully communicating that with parents, or would addressing it go against the command to honor our father and mother? There have been arguments and other unfortunate situations between them, and I'm assuming that's between the mother, the older mother and father, the grandma and grandpa, while our kids have been present. And I never know how to deal with those situations in the moment.
Yeah.
Any insight or suggestions would be great. So the book is talking about these two characters, the White Knight and the Reviling Wife. The Reviling Wife is basically, it's a woman who fits the Proverbs mold of the woman that would make you want to live on the corner of your roof. And it's an epidemic because we have failed in church and culture to confront the sins of women specifically. We have generally been quite free to confront male sins. Like it'd be totally fine culturally to say, men shouldn't be angry and, all the common sins to men, anger, lust, greed, etc. But women's biggest failings are that they don't have enough self-esteem. They don't think highly enough of themselves. And any problem with a woman is probably a man's fault. Like that's kind of how it works. So that produces reviling wives. And then it also produces white knights who are men, typically, who will defend defend the reviling woman from any criticism. And so this is the pastor or biblical counselor that when there's a marriage problem and anytime it starts to zero in the counseling on the woman, she's super naggy and rude and disrespectful. It's like, interesting. Husband, why did you make her rude and naggy like that? and it just immediately it's like, she can never sin. And it's somewhat of a caricature, but it's almost not.
Oh my gosh, no.
So this is epidemic and rampant, not just in younger generations, but older ones, up to baby boomer generation. You see women who have quite almost literally never been corrected effectively for their sins. They have been allowed to run rampant in their sins and they've hardened in them to the point where they are rude, naggy, loud, bitter, like manipulative. They're just terrible women. I'm not saying the mother in this situation is that. That's like the peak.
Yeah.
You said tendencies. The reason that a book like that is helpful for anybody to read, men or women, is because it helps you see the tendencies before they go fully grown and harden. That's actually the main point of the book, because a reviling wife, when she's fully set like that, it is genuinely a miracle of God for them to repent at that point.
Yes.
And because it will be so damaging to their whole world, they will have to repent all the way to the bottom. Where you want to head off sins is when they're in the seed form, or when they're in the little sapling, when it's the little seedling coming out of the dirt and you go, oh, if I let that grow up, I'm going to become a really rude, naggy wife and drive my husband to the corner of the roof.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you, when you have a grandmother, your mother-in-law or your own mother, and you're grown and you have children and you're in this situation, what is appropriate? What is like, that's not my job. I just need to pray for her. What is, I need to have a direct conversation. I saw it. I witnessed it. What is my husband needs to step in? That's the question here. The first thing I think I would say is from Lexy's perspective, because this is the woman writing in, is that anytime, and I'm not talking about I don't want to make anybody think we're talking about like bad things about our parents. We have two wonderful Christian. Lexy's parents are both Christians. My parents are both Christians, both in the area, both great. But we do, through being in church with a lot of other families, have people who are closer to the situation asking for counsel.
Yeah.
And I know the first thing that you would say to a wife is definitely like, get some marching orders from your husband, for sure. Right? Like, don't just go off. Don't just like try to do a bunch of stuff without consulting your husband, especially because this is like his mother in this situation.
This is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It is. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's actually her mother. Yeah. It's her mother. I remembered that wrong. Either way, I would say that's the first thing. Get clear with your husband. I do think in terms of order, because of the honoring your father and mother, you have to recognize, get realistic about the limitations of your authority.
Yeah.
And it changes situation to situation. If you're in the same church and you're all submitted to the same spiritual leadership, that is actually a different and easier situation in a way. Because
you're all dealing with one church culture.
Yeah, you can just say, look, if your pastors are on board and they agree that those are sinful things and it needs to be brought up, then you're going to have someone on your team and outside the family in authority who does not have the same duty to honor your father and mother in the same way. Your mother and father in that case actually have a duty to submit to the elders. Hebrews 13:7 and 17. I would say the first layer of this is the husband, your husband, the son of the woman in question, needs to have a conversation with his father.
Father-in-law?
No, his father. Because it's his mother.
Okay, I thought it wasn't.
We're getting confused.
Sorry.
In this situation, it's his mother.
Okay.
The questioner is married.
Okay.
Her husband's parents are who they're talking about.
Okay.
So he needs to talk to his dad and say, hey, Dad.
For sure.
Let's just get it out in the open, elephant in the room. Mom has some of these tendencies. And we love her, we honor her, we want good for her. But they're causing these problems. Like, first of all, for you. Secondly, our kids are seeing this when you guys fight.
It's awkward to be around.
It's awkward. It's not a good model for our children. We don't want our daughters to model that. We don't want our sons to marry a woman like that. So I wouldn't maybe say it quite that strongly. But do you see this, Dad? And then maybe he's feeling trapped. Like maybe he doesn't know how to address it. And this can be an example of a son who maybe has learned some things his dad didn't know. Who can say, Dad, let me help you. Let me pray for you. You really need to talk to Mom about this and bring it up. And then the ball's in, and he actually has authority. He is her head. And maybe you need to help him out. I don't think it would be inappropriate for a son to have that conversation with his mother either. But it needs to go to the father first. Because think about it again. He's the head of her. The son is not the head of that woman.
No.
He's actually in a different place in the hierarchy, but the husband is. Now, working together, maybe there can be a strategy that's developed to confront it. I don't think the daughter-in-law is in an ideal situation.
No.
To do a lot about it directly first.
No.
Without it having worked through that level first. And then in coordination with that level, maybe there's things that she could do. Because it's so situationally specific that I can't give general advice beyond that.
Yeah. I would just say the wife can be content with like the fact that the fruit of her marriage and the way she conducts herself towards her husband and even towards her in-laws, honoring and respecting them, is still going to teach and show them also. Like the only option as a woman isn't just opening your mouth, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's exactly. Like you don't feel like you're doing nothing if what you do is pray, talk to your husband,
and continue to be
committed
that
to the
good
Lord.
example yourself.
Yep. And then your children, as they grow, you're going to be able to have conversations with them where you compare and contrast, where maybe a common example would be something like, let's say grandma and grandpa go to a different church than you guys do. And your kids are growing up and they're starting to notice like a difference between the maybe mega church culture and your church culture. They're not dumb. Kids aren't dumb. They see stuff. They might ask a question or notice something, and then you can help coach them in that how to honor, because you want to model that. You want your kids to honor you when they grow up and maybe they come have different things than you and they come to different convictions. You want to model like, yeah, grandma and grandpa, they've gone to that church for a long time and we love them. But we do think that this is an improvement here. This is why we do church the way that we do. But we love and we honor and respect grandma and grandpa. And that's great. Like you've just...
The kids are like, cool, so do we.
Great. And then they move on. Like, that's great. So, yeah.
Whose voice was that you were?
Ira.
Okay.
My buddy Ira. It's not really a good imitation anymore, but when he was like 5, it was. He had such an iconic voice. little voice. Okay, we'll end with this last one. This isn't a question. It's just a listener from Michigan left this note of encouragement. And I read through all these and Lexi doesn't get to. So I'm just going to read it so Lexi can hear this encouragement too. I thought it was good and it was encouraging. This is a listener from Michigan. They said, hello, my friend recommended you guys to us. They're from another church and have been listening to your podcasts over on Spotify. So I'm finishing up your fertility in the bedroom episode, and over the past 2 days, your first episode, as well as that one, the fertility one, has had such a positive change on my mindset and marriage, even in just a few days. So thank you for speaking out about these things, and we look forward to continuing to listen. So thank you for that encouragement. If anybody wants to send encouraging notes, that's fine too. I won't stop.
Brian reads them all.
I read them all. I put them up on my affirmation board.
Do you have a vision board?
On my affirmation board, actually. Yeah.
Okay,
but
just kidding, guys.
I thought it was so funny, and I included it because it was like the fertility episode was really helpful, even in the
last 2 days.
And I was like,
that's what I was thinking.
That marriage is doing well this week. And I think that humanly speaking, the Lord's sovereign. I think there are some Bright Hearth babies out there.
Oh, I'm sure we've met some.
Right? Some Bright Hearth babies.
We've met some Bright Hearth babies.
Some babies that exist because of a silly
My
podcast.
favorite ones are the ones where it's like they told me I couldn't have a baby because of XYZ thing. But we listened to you guys and we could, and it was better than we could have imagined. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
See, Lexi's like jazzed when some lady uses progesterone. And I'm like, no, but our bedroom episodes. They're Bright Hearthing at home.
I could keep going about this topic, but
I know.
I will resist.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to this episode. A week from today, our next episode will continue. We have a half dozen plus other questions, and I know we spent a lot of time on a few of these today, but we'll work to get through those. Keep sending in your questions. We love to get them, and we would love, of course, to see you at the New Christendom Press Conference. Go to thewarfornormal.com for speaker information, tickets, all that, and we have made this our most affordable conference ever with our family pass. So come hang out with us. If you can, stay through Sunday and worship with us. We would love to have you join us there, and we do a barbecue in the park after the Sunday service as well. That should just be a lot of fun. And we did decide Lexi is going to do an episode of In the Kitchen that goes with this episode on histamines, because we've had a ton of people with histamine issues, and I had some recently. Like, we break out in hives. It's really miserable. It's getting more and more common in the world for reasons that we will not go into lest we get censored as a podcast. But Lexi will do a quick In the Kitchen on that, and that is just a quick show that we do for our patrons if you support the show. So the link for that is in the description. And thanks again for listening, guys, and have a great week. This is Bright Hearth signing off.